Of all the SNES games I played during my childhood, Harvest Moon is one of the SNES games I enjoyed the most. That's funny because the first few times I tried it, I couldn't get into it at all. The first time I rented it, I didn't have the manual and had no idea what to do. So, as you might expect from a young kid, I got bored and gave up pretty quickly. Then, a few years later as a teenager, I gave it another try and made an effort to understand how the game worked. I still wasn't very good at the game, but this time I had an absolute blast. Since then, I have done everything possible in the game more than once. Even though I have played this game so many times, I feel like playing it again. So I'm doing this review as an excuse to play through Harvest Moon again and take some cool screenshots. Let's start with the premise of Harvest Moon. It's actually quite simple. Pete, the main protagonist of the game, is entrusted with a farm by his parents. His parents then leave for 2.5 years. During these 2.5 years, you are free to do whatever you want. You can try to take care of the ranch and make some money, or you can spend all your time doing nothing and let the ranch fall apart. It's all up to you. This complete freedom is part of the fun of Harvest Moon. You can just do whatever you feel like doing. Since I'm reviewing this game, I wanted to follow a walkthrough and try to min-max my playthrough to cover as much stuff as possible. But this way of playing the game quickly became boring. I think these kinds of games are much more fun when you try to figure out by yourself ways to optimize your playthrough and get better at the game. When you start the game, you see a simple animation that gives you the gist of the game's story. There's no dialogue, but it gives you everything you need to know to understand what's going on. Sometimes less is better. After this animation, the title screen appears. On this title screen, there is a how to play menu option. Tutorials were not common during the SNES era. Since farming games were not a thing at that time, including a tutorial in the game was a pretty good idea. It's also nice that the tutorial is something optional, not forced on you. But I'm not even sure I could call it a tutorial. It's just a bunch of animations of Pete doing all sorts of activities without any explanation. When I was a kid, it wasn't enough for me to clearly understand how to play the game. But I think it was intentional on the part of the developers, and I think that is a good thing. As I said earlier, Harvest Moon is more fun when you discover all its intricacies on your own by trying things out. So as you can see, this game does not hold your hand like so many modern games. Of course, it can make you confused about what to do and cause you to miss things, but the sense of freedom it gives is so much fun and totally worth it. And Harvest Moon uses this sense of the unknown as a strength, creating an air of mystery. This game has a lot of mysterious elements that you don't know what they're supposed to mean at first, but you feel that they're connected to something that's going to happen in the future. For example, there's a big tree on your farm. There's also a mysterious cave in the back hill. It's fun to imagine what purpose they will serve. Speaking of secrets, there are also mysterious creatures called imps that you can encounter by doing certain things. You can go through an entire playthrough without encountering any. Harvest Moon is full of cool secrets like this. But even though you will probably miss a lot of these secrets, as I said, I would not recommend following a walkthrough if you are playing this game for the first time. Trying to uncover all the secrets of Harvest Moon is part of the fun. You can always follow a guide on a second playthrough. This is one of the longest SNES games, so I don't think you'll want to do a second playthrough immediately after finishing the game the first time. Aside from finding secrets, the main goal of this game is, as you might expect, to farm stuff. But before I grow anything on my farm, I like to start with a clean slate. So on my first day, I always clear the whole farm of stones, weeds, and tree stumps. This may sound boring, but watching your ranch get cleaner and cleaner is actually quite satisfying. Every time you chop down tree stumps with an axe or break rocks with a hammer, you lose stamina. Once you're out of stamina, you can't do anything anymore. Thankfully, you can restore your stamina by taking a dip in the hot springs on the mountain. And since the night only ends when you go to bed, you can take as much time as you like to clean up the farm. Speaking of hot springs, if you're lucky, you can sometimes see a monkey in them. There are so many cool details like that in this game. These details help to bring the world of Harvest Moon to life. Clearing the ranch isn't just about aesthetics and making room for crops, it's also about collecting wood. Chopping down tree stumps with an axe gives you wood. You need wood to build fences and upgrade your house. Once you have cleared the ranch, you can arrange the fences as you wish or remove them completely. It takes a while, but it feels really nice to have a huge fence around your whole ranch. You can also use fences in creative ways, such as creating paths and separating your different crops. Fences protect chickens from stray dogs when kept outside. They also improve the overall aesthetics of your farm. Since you don't have any time restrictions at night, another good thing to do during this time is to tend to your crops. Growing vegetables is actually quite simple. You plow the soil, put seeds on the plowed soil, and then water the soil. It's really rewarding to see your crops grow every day. And when your crops have finally grown to the point where you can harvest them, it's really fun to bask in the fruits of your labor, no pun intended. To sell your mature crops, you must put them in the bin during the day. At 5 p.m. the shipper comes and buys everything in the bin. Anything put in the bin after the shipper is gone is lost. Also, if you accidentally don't aim correctly when throwing the vegetable into the bin, it will be destroyed. The same happens if you miss when giving gifts or other items to NPCs. Little mistakes like this can happen quite often. In my opinion, it's more fun to just ignore them and focus on the big picture and move on to the next goal. If I have to reset the game every time I make a small mistake, it can be exhausting. You have several tools at your disposal to attend to your farm. Many of these tools have an upgraded gold version that is much more effective. Using these gold tools for the first time feels like gaining a bunch of levels in an RPG or getting a powerful weapon. Playing around with these tools when you first get them is really fun. One thing that isn't so much fun is the hurricanes that you can sometimes get during the summer. These are completely random, so if you're lucky, you'll never come across them. You can't go out if there's a hurricane, so you lose a whole day. Hurricanes destroy some of your crops. It's a bit disheartening to see the crops you've worked so hard to grow partially destroyed. The first time I got a hurricane, I almost quit the game. Well, I guess that's one of the things you have to deal with when you're a farmer. One thing that hurricanes don't affect is your livestock. Well, at least if you keep them inside. The first animal you get is a dog. You get to name it. He has no purpose in the game other than being your pet and being cute. The second animals you can get are chickens. If you feed them, they will lay eggs. This is a pretty good source of income early in the game. If you don't feed them, nothing will happen. They won't get sick or anything. So if you don't want eggs, they don't need any maintenance at all, which is pretty nice. Cows, however, require a lot of maintenance. If you don't take care of them, they can get sick and even die. But their milk is an amazing source of income, so the trade-off is well worth it. The last animal you will receive is a horse. When it gets bigger, you can ride it to get around your farm really fast. It can also carry the crops you pick up, which makes farming a lot faster. This kind of progression keeps the game from getting boring. You feed your livestock grass. When grass is planted, it can never be removed, so you need to think carefully before deciding where you want grass on your farm. Personally, I like to plant all my grass in the southern part of my farm. Another way to make money is by picking things in the mountains, such as flowers and fruit. It's a great way to make money at the beginning of the game, when you don't have any livestock and your crops aren't ready to be harvested. Sure, you can spend all your time farming and trying to make money, but you can also try to have a balanced life by having social interactions. There are many NPCs in the town and on the back hill that you can interact with. Since there's a day and night cycle, the NPCs won't be in the same place depending on what time it is. They even do different things on weekends. Of course, it's not as intricate as something like Shenmue, but it's still pretty impressive for a SNES game. At night, the music stops and everywhere is dead quiet. That is, except for the bar. The bar has its own BGM and is very lively. It really does have the feel of a place to cool off after a long day's work. It has a really nice atmosphere, and I was surprised that you can get drunk in a SNES game. Well, it's called Juice, but you'll still see a sprite animation of your character looking drunk. And the fact that everywhere else is dead quiet makes this bar feel even more lively. You can even develop a relationship with 5 girls and eventually marry one of them. This is a major part of Harvest Moon and will affect the ending. You can check the diary of each girl to see how much they like you. The more hearts there are in their diary, the more they like you. Grinding to increase the number of hearts in their diaries is quite addictive. Every heart you get feels like gaining a level in an RPG. The main way to improve your relationship with a girl is to give her a gift or answer her questions. Once you have built up a good relationship with a girl, a special event will be triggered. Some of these events are quite moving. In this playthrough, I tried to improve my relationship with all the girls to see their special events. I usually marry the girl who works at the bar, because you can meet her at night, and since time stops during that time, you can just go pick berries in the mountains over and over again and give them to her until you have maxed out your relationship points with her. But this time I married Ellen, the girl who gives you a dog at the beginning of the game. I felt that she had a personality that was most compatible with Pete's. And since she loves animals and fresh food, I thought that of all the girls, she would enjoy farm life the most. And even visually, I thought she matched Pete. She has brown hair and wears a red, white, and blue outfit. Once you have a child, it's really nice to see him or her grow. Once he starts walking, he wears a cow pajama. Well, at least I think it's supposed to be a cow. It's really cute. It was the first time I managed to get 2 kids in the same playthrough. Another part of having a social life is going to festivals. There are 6 festivals in total. Only 2 of these are mandatory. If you don't visit the town during the day, you can miss the other ones completely. My favorite festival is the Star Night Festival in winter. During that festival, you get to choose where you want to spend your evening. Whichever you choose, it leads to a really nice scene. In town, the trees have lights in them, which creates a really nice atmosphere. But it's not just the little details of the festivals that look good. The graphics are another strong point of Harvest Moon. They kind of remind me of Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, but with a more cutesy anime style. For example, the peddler in town looks like he has a cat's mouth. The cows are super cartoony with their huge eyes, and all these character sprites have dark gray outlines instead of black, which gives them a softer look. This level of attention to color choice is evident throughout the game. The color palette of Harvest Moon is really beautiful and fits every season. For example, in summer the colors are more saturated and the grass is bright green. But for some reason it's always cloudy in the summer. But these clouds make good use of the SNES's transparency capabilities and add a nice atmosphere to the environment. In spring, the trees in the town are pink. I'm not sure where in the world this game is set, but I think those are cherry blossoms. This game is full of beautiful details like this that make the game feel more alive. It makes you want to live in that world. Since there's only one town in the game, they could afford to include more details and variety than the usual SNES JRPG. Each house in the town has a different sprite set, and many of the objects and furniture in these houses display text when you interact with them. I really enjoy reading them to learn about the lore of the game. For these buildings and much of the environment, brown is the most commonly used color. It feels like every shade of brown and beige in the SNES color palette has been used. This actually works quite well. It fits in with the rural setting and brings out the colorful elements such as the pink trees. It also makes characters with colorful, bright hair stand out more. Whether it was just intuition or not, you can really see that the artists who worked on this game had a good grasp of color theory. Speaking of the environment, the view from the top of the mountain is truly breathtaking. The water in this game also looks really nice. It's fully animated and has a nice transparency effect. The music is another element of Harvest Moon that adds to its amazing atmosphere. It's one of the reasons I keep coming back to this game instead of trying out its many sequels. It has one of my favorite video game soundtracks ever. It feels so peaceful and relaxing and always puts me in a good mood. Listening to these tracks takes me back to the late 90s, when things felt less complicated. And while I love the soundtrack, I think Harvest Moon does a great job of not overusing the music. The moments when there's no music, like at night, are also very powerful. There's also no music on rainy days. Instead, you can hear the sound of the rain. And if you're inside a house, the sound of the rain will be different. It gives you a sense of comfort and security when you're inside your home. This game has such an amazing atmosphere. Oddly enough, if you plant new seeds on a rainy day, you need to water them. You don't need to water the rest of your crop. When your parents come home after 2.5 years, the ending you get depends on what you've done during those years. There are tons of endings you can get depending on what you did. When I first finished Harvest Moon, I remember that my parents were quite disappointed in me, probably because my farm hadn't grown very much and I hadn't made a lot of money. This motivated me to expand my knowledge of Harvest Moon so that I could do better in subsequent playthroughs. Unfortunately, this game is full of bugs and some of them affect the ending. For example, if you make too much money, ship too much of the same crop, or have too good a relationship with a girl, you will be penalized. There's a certain threshold you can't cross if you want to get the best ending. It's as if the developers didn't expect players to be so good that they would find a way to maximize their playthroughs to such an extent. Thankfully, a hacker called MattDog1Million has made a patch that fixes all these bugs and even adds some quality of life improvements. This patch is available at rumhacking.net. However, this patch does change some of the balance and gameplay elements, so since I'm so used to playing the original, I prefer to play the game unpatched. I just have to ignore my OCD mind, which always wants me to get the best possible ending. You have to enjoy the journey, not the destination, or something like that. And you can always check YouTube to see what a perfect ending looks like. Playing Harvest Moon again brought back so many childhood memories, and I had a lot of fun playing it again. It has an amazing atmosphere that allows you to immerse yourself in its amazing world. And for the music alone, I think this game is worth playing. And on top of that, the gameplay loop is quite addictive. All in all, I think Harvest Moon is a must-play game in the SNES library. Despite having played the original Harvest Moon so many times, I haven't played much of its many sequels. I'm definitely going to try them one day and maybe review them too. This concludes my review of Harvest Moon for the SNES. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.